AITA for telling my brother he can't bring his partner to our family vacation after he refused to help me with mine. So, this is going to be a bit long, but I'll try to make it clear. I, 32F, have a younger brother, Alex, 29M, and we've always had a bit of a complicated relationship. Growing up, he was the golden child in our parents' eyes, and while I've always been more independent, I've never really held it against him. But now, as adults, it's created a pattern that's frustrating. A few months ago, I started planning a vacation for myself and my partner, Daniel, 33M, to a coastal town we both love. I wanted to do something big because we haven't really had a proper getaway in years. I have a decent amount of PTO saved up, but the truth is it's still expensive. I reached out to Alex and his partner, Jess, 28F, because I wanted them to come along. I was thinking it could be fun to make it a joint family trip since we don't get many opportunities to travel together. I sent Alex a message detailing dates, places we could stay, and a rough budget. I also asked if he could pitch in for a few things like groceries, rental cars, or tickets for some activities, since splitting costs would make it easier for everyone. His response? He basically said he couldn't because money's tight and that he wasn't interested in splitting a vacation with me and Daniel anyway. I was hurt, but I decided to let it slide and just go with Daniel. I figured it wasn't worth pushing and tried to enjoy the planning on my own. Fast forward to last week. My parents reached out saying they wanted to book a family vacation for the summer. They asked if I could help coordinate logistics because I've got more experience with travel planning. I agreed, thinking it would be fun, and started sorting out accommodations, flights, and activity options. While doing this, I made it clear that everyone's partner was welcome. That included Alex's partner, Jess. I didn't expect any issues. A few days ago, Alex called me out of nowhere. He said he was planning to come with Jess and wanted to know if I could book 2 extra rooms or figure out logistics to accommodate them. I paused because, honestly, I was annoyed. I told him, "You didn't help me with my vacation, and you made it clear you weren't interested in splitting costs or planning with us. I don't see why I should bend over backward for you this time." Alex got really defensive. He said I was being unfair, that family vacations are about being together, and that I was being petty. I countered that a family vacation shouldn't automatically include him and Jess if they can't contribute or haven't shown consideration in the past. He accused me of holding grudges and said I was creating drama unnecessarily. My parents, meanwhile, are caught in the middle. They agree with me to some extent. They know how Alex has behaved in the past, but they also feel like I'm overreacting and being too rigid. My friends are split. Some think I'm justified. Others think I'm being unnecessarily harsh. Now, the problem is that Alex isn't taking no very well. He's talking to other family members, trying to get them to pressure me into allowing him and Jess to come. He's calling me selfish and saying I'm punishing him for something that happened months ago. I feel like I'm being reasonable. I'm not excluding him to be cruel. I just don't want to go out of my way for someone who wasn't willing to support me before. Daniel thinks I'm right and that Alex is taking advantage of family dynamics. But I can't help feeling guilty that I might be damaging our sibling relationship. I don't want to ruin the vacation or make my parents upset. At the same time, I feel like giving him would set a precedent that I have to accommodate him whenever he's lazy or refuses to participate in joint planning. So, Reddit, AITA for telling my brother he can't bring his partner to our family vacation after he refused to help me with mine. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay at my house after she left them unsupervised for hours. So, some context first. I, 32F, live alone in a small apartment. My sister, Karen, 28F, has 3 kids, Max, 8M, Lily, 6F, and Noah, 3M. She's a single mom and has a pretty chaotic lifestyle. I love my niece and nephews, but I also value my space and personal time. For the past few years, I've occasionally babysat, but it's always been scheduled and agreed upon. I've always made it clear that I'm happy to help, but I need notice, and I don't do drop-ins or last-minute childcare. Last weekend, Karen called me frantic. She had to go to an urgent meeting for work that she couldn't reschedule and asked if I could watch her kids for a couple of hours. I told her I was busy cleaning and reorganizing my apartment and had plans to cook a meal for myself that I had been looking forward to all week. I suggested she call one of her friends or her neighbor who has kids the same age. She started panicking and said, "Please, it's only a few hours. You're the only one who can help." I hesitated because I honestly felt that this was too last minute, and I had a lot to do. I offered compromise. I could watch them for an hour, but no more. She agreed and dropped them off. Now, here's where things went downhill. I planned to keep them entertained for an hour, and then I would get them back to her. I set up a few activities for Max and Lily, drawing, puzzles, and some snacks. Noah, being 3, was mostly just running around or playing with blocks. I made sure everyone was safe and happy. An hour passed, and I called Karen to let her know I was ready to hand the kids back. She said she would be there in 30 minutes. I told her that was fine, and I tried to keep them busy. About 20 minutes later, I realized something was off. Max and Lily were fighting constantly over toys, and Noah had dumped water from a sippy cup all over the living room rug. I tried redirecting them, but the kids were escalating. By the time Karen finally arrived, my apartment looked like a tornado had hit it. There were spilled snacks, scattered toys, a damp rug, and a very upset toddler. I was furious, but tried to stay calm. I told Karen that I felt disrespected because she had left them longer than agreed without letting me know, and that my place was not a daycare. Karen immediately got defensive. She said, "It's only a mess. It's not like you have to live in a museum. I left them with you because I trust you. You're overreacting." I tried to explain that it's not about being messy. It's about respect and boundaries. She stormed out with her kids, muttering that I was selfish and cruel. The following day, I received a series of angry texts from her. She accused me of refusing to help my family, being petty about a few toys, and making her kids feel unwelcome. She also copied our parents into one of the messages, saying that I had created an unsafe environment for the kids. Our parents called me to ask what happened. I explained the situation calmly and that I had only agreed to babysit for an hour and that she had left them unsupervised beyond that. They seemed to understand, but also mentioned that I could have been a bit more flexible since Karen really needed help. I explained that I was willing to help if she gave proper notice, but last-minute drop-offs aren't acceptable. Since then, Karen has stopped speaking to me. She has also been posting subtle, passive-aggressive comments on social media, implying that I don't care about family and that I can't handle kids. Some mutual friends have messaged me privately saying that she tends to exaggerate situations to make herself look like the victim, which makes me feel caught in the middle. I want to maintain a relationship with my niece and nephews, but I also feel like my boundaries were completely ignored. I don't want to be guilt-tripped for enforcing them, especially when I went above and beyond just by agreeing to watch them for an hour despite my plans. I'm trying to figure out whether I was actually being unreasonable. Am I the asshole for refusing to let her kids stay longer than agreed and for being upset about the mess and chaos that resulted? Or am I justified in setting boundaries, even with family? This situation has left me frustrated and anxious because I feel like anytime I try to assert myself, I get labeled as uncaring or selfish. I love my sister and I love the kids, but I also feel like she's taking advantage of my willingness to help. I'm struggling with guilt because I don't want to be the bad aunt, but at the same time, I can't ignore my own limits. I've considered offering to help again in the future, but only if there's proper notice and a clear agreement on the duration. I'm worried that even if I set these terms, she might get upset again. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells, and I don't want to lose the relationship entirely, but I also don't want to continue being treated like my time isn't valuable. So, AITA here for refusing to let my sister's kids stay longer than agreed and for being upset when she left them unsupervised in my apartment. AITA for confronting my sister over a gift that turned into a massive family feud. I, 32F, have always considered myself a pretty easygoing person, but recently, something happened with my sister, 28F, that's made me question if I went too far. To give you the full picture, I need to explain the context because this isn't a simple "she borrowed my stuff" type of story. It involves family dynamics, money, and some long-standing tension that I didn't even realize was there until it blew up in my face. So, my sister and I have always had different approaches to life. She's very spontaneous, lives in the moment, and doesn't worry too much about planning ahead. I'm more organized, cautious with money, and plan everything in advance. It's never been a huge issue, but it's definitely shaped how we see each other. Our parents are divorced, and while they both try to stay neutral, I've always felt that my sister got more special treatment growing up, which we've never talked about directly. But again, this has never caused major problems between us until recently. A few months ago, my sister told me she wanted to move to a different city. She had found a new job, and while the city was expensive, she said she was ready for the challenge. At first, I was supportive. I even offered to help her look for apartments online because I have a lot of experience in that area. Then came the gift part. She said she wanted to celebrate the move with a little going-away present for herself. She mentioned that she really wanted a high-end coffee machine that costs around $800. I've always been a little better off financially than her, and I assumed she was joking when she said she wanted me to buy it for her as a surprise. But she got very serious and said, "You can do it. You know you have the money." I felt immediately uncomfortable. I didn't want to be responsible for something that expensive for her, so I said no. She looked disappointed, but I thought that was the end of it. Fast forward a few weeks. Her birthday came up, and I decided to get her a nice but reasonable gift, a designer candle set and a gift card to her favorite clothing store. I wanted it to be thoughtful without going overboard. When I gave it to her, she immediately frowned and said, "Is that it? I thought you said you'd help me with the coffee machine." I was confused and reminded her that I never agreed to buy it for her. She got visibly upset and stormed off. I didn't think much of it at the time, assuming she'd calmed down. That night, our parents called me. Apparently, my sister had told them that I had promised to buy the coffee machine and had backed out at the last minute. They were disappointed in me and said I was being mean to my sister. I tried explaining my side, but they seemed to believe her version over mine, partly because she's usually more dramatic and persuasive. I felt blindsided and frustrated, but I didn't want to escalate things further, so I just said I'd apologize if that would calm things down. My sister, however, wasn't satisfied. Over the next month, things got worse. She started making passive-aggressive comments every time we were together, like, "I guess some people just don't keep their promises," or, "It's okay. Not everyone can afford to be generous." She also sent our extended family messages implying that I had refused to support her because I'm selfish. Several relatives reached out to me, questioning why I would treat my sister that way. I tried to explain, but it felt like nobody was really listening. Eventually, I decided I had to confront her. I called her and asked to meet in person. I calmly explained that I never promised to buy her the coffee machine, and that while I wanted to celebrate her move, there were limits to what I could do financially. I also said that it hurt me that she had told our parents and family that I had gone back on a promise I never made. She immediately started yelling at me, accusing me of being controlling, unsupportive, and manipulative. She said I had ruined her birthday and turned everyone against her. I stayed calm, repeated my points, and said I was willing to have a respectful conversation, but not an argument where I'm being accused of lying. She eventually left in a huff, saying I was never going to understand her. That was last week. Since then, I haven't spoken to her, and family gatherings have been tense. Some relatives are siding with her, saying I should apologize again, but I feel like I already did everything I could, and that apologizing for something I didn't do would make me feel like I'm validating dishonesty. I've asked a few friends for perspective, and some say I overreacted by confronting her and that I should just let her vent and give her the coffee machine to make peace. Others say I was reasonable, and she's the one escalating unnecessarily. Honestly, I'm exhausted. I never expected a simple birthday and move to spark this much drama. So Reddit, AITA for confronting my sister over the coffee machine situation, or should I just let it go and try to mend things by giving her the gift she wanted, even though it was never my obligation? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she disinvited my partner over a misunderstanding? This is going to be long, but I feel like I need to explain everything clearly because my family is so divided right now. 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F, and we've always been close growing up. My sister is getting married in a few months, and while we were initially really excited, things have started to spiral in a way I never expected. My partner, Alex, 30M, and I have been together for 5 years. We've had our ups and downs, like any long-term couple, but overall things have been stable and supportive. Alex has always gotten along well with my family, especially my parents, though Emily has always been a little more distant with him. She isn't outright mean, but she can be judgmental in a passive-aggressive way. For example, she often comments on Alex's career choices, his clothes, or even his hobbies, which I try to brush off because I know weddings are stressful for brides, and she tends to be controlling about how things should be. The trouble started a few weeks ago when my sister asked me if Alex could help her with a small task related to her wedding. She wanted someone to go with her to pick out some decorations because she was short on time, and she assumed I could go along with him. I asked Alex if he was okay with it, and he said sure, though he was a little annoyed because he wasn't super excited about sitting in a craft store for an hour. I told him it wasn't a big deal, and he reluctantly agreed. The day we went, everything seemed fine at first. Emily and I picked out some flowers and other small items, and Alex tried to be helpful. But then, when Emily and I were discussing some table arrangements, she made a comment about how she didn't want people who were too opinionated helping. Alex, thinking she was joking, made a light-hearted comment about how he would just take over everything if allowed, which was meant as sarcasm. Emily didn't laugh. She got really quiet and then made a vague comment about how she didn't want anyone causing drama at her wedding. I thought it was odd, but I brushed it off. I didn't see it as a big deal, and Alex hadn't meant anything negative. Later that evening, Emily texted me saying that she thought Alex had been rude and that she didn't feel comfortable having him at the wedding. I was completely shocked. I immediately called her to clarify, and she said that Alex's joking tone came across as mocking and disrespectful to her, and that she wanted to disinvite him. I tried to reason with her, explaining that he was joking and didn't intend to be disrespectful, but she was adamant. She said she couldn't change her mind and that if he came, she would not have me at the wedding either. I was devastated. I've never missed an important family event, and Emily and I have always had a close bond. I understand wanting a stress-free wedding, but this felt extreme to me. I tried to talk to my parents, and they were torn. My dad said he thought Emily was overreacting and that Alex didn't do anything wrong. My mom, however, said that as the bride, Emily gets to decide who attends, and I should respect her wishes. I felt stuck between wanting to support my sister and not wanting to exclude Alex, who hasn't ever done anything to warrant this. After thinking about it for days, I told Emily that I wouldn't attend the wedding if Alex wasn't welcome. I explained that I couldn't celebrate such an important day without my partner there, and that asking me to choose felt unfair. Emily blew up at me. She said I was being selfish, that this was her day, and that I didn't care about her feelings. I tried to explain that I do care about her, but I also needed to set boundaries for my relationship. Since then, there's been a huge divide in my family. My parents are disappointed with both of us in different ways. My extended family is taking sides, and Emily has stopped talking to me entirely. Some of my friends have told me I'm being unreasonable and should just go without Alex to maintain family peace. Others say I'm right to stand by my partner. I keep thinking about it, and part of me wonders if I should just swallow my pride for one day and go, even if Alex isn't there. But another part of me feels that doing so would validate Emily's extreme reaction and send a message that she can dictate who I bring to important events based on a misunderstanding. I also don't want to start a marriage by stepping on my own boundaries. I'm really torn. My sister and I have always been close, and now it feels like that relationship is irreparably damaged. But I also don't want to compromise my relationship with Alex or my sense of fairness. I haven't spoken to Emily since telling her I wouldn't attend, and she hasn't reached out either. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she disinvited my partner over what I see as a misunderstanding. I know this is a long story, but I wanted to include all the context so that it's clear why I feel the way I do. I just don't know if I'm overreacting or if I'm justified in standing my ground. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after he borrowed a large sum of money without asking. So here's some context. I, 32F, own a fairly small house, a two-bedroom place that I moved into right after buying it 3 years ago. It's not massive, but it's cozy, and I take pride in how I've made it my own. I live alone, except for my dog, Max, who is basically my child. My sister, Emily, 29F, has been dating her fiancé, Derek, 31M, for about 5 years. Emily and I have always been close, but I'll admit that her relationship with Derek has been complicated. He's smart and charming, but he has a tendency to manipulate situations to his benefit, especially financially. About 2 weeks ago, Emily called me in a panic. She and Derek had gotten into an argument because Derek had borrowed money from one of Emily's friends to pay off a bill, and now that friend was upset. Emily said she was stressed and needed to get out of the house for a few days. I offered that she could come stay with me for a couple of nights if she wanted, just to get a breather. She seemed relieved and promised it would just be a short visit. A few hours later, Derek texted me saying he'd come too, because Emily was too upset to be alone. I was hesitant, but didn't want to seem unhelpful. I told him he could come, but I made it clear that he would be a guest, not a roommate, and that he couldn't bring any obligations or expect to use my things without asking. He assured me he would respect that. Fast forward to their arrival. They brought a lot of luggage, like enough to make me feel like they were moving in temporarily. I shrugged it off at first. Emily stayed in my guest room, and Derek set up a little space in the living room with his stuff. Things were fine for the first night. The next morning, Derek casually mentioned that he was short on cash because of the bill he'd borrowed money for, and he asked if he could borrow $1,500 from me until he got paid. I was taken aback. I've lent money to Emily before, but Derek and I aren't close like that, and $1,500 is not a small amount for me. I told him no, and he laughed it off like I was being unreasonable. He said, "Come on, we're family now. You'll get it back in a week." I said again that I wasn't comfortable lending him money and that if he needed help, he should look elsewhere. That evening, I realized some things were missing from my kitchen. Specifically, I noticed that some of my nicer cooking tools, some pantry items, and a small stack of cash that I'd set aside for bills were gone. I confronted them, and Derek initially acted confused, like he had no idea what I was talking about. Emily tried to defuse it, saying maybe it was just a misunderstanding or that I miscounted. I was very clear. I knew exactly what was missing, and it matched what Derek had asked for. Derek finally admitted that he borrowed some of my money and a few things from my kitchen to cover his immediate expenses. I was furious. I told them both that this was completely unacceptable and that they had to leave. Derek tried to argue that he would pay me back and that I was overreacting. Emily tried to mediate, saying I was being harsh and that he didn't mean any harm. I told her that the issue wasn't just the money, it was the principle. I don't invite people into my home to have them steal from me. They left the next day, but Emily hasn't spoken to me much since then. She sent a long message saying that I had embarrassed Derek and that I shouldn't have made them leave, especially when he was stressed. She called me selfish and said I was letting money and petty things come between us. I feel like I'm in the right. I set boundaries, and they were violated in a very serious way. But my sister is clearly upset, and now I'm wondering if I handled it too harshly. I didn't physically kick them out or yell, but I was very firm that they couldn't stay after what happened. I also don't want to lend Derek money, ever, because I don't trust him. Am I the asshole for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after he borrowed money and items without permission? If you want, I can also add a bonus twist, ending that tends to make stories blow up on Reddit, like an unexpected reaction from Emily's fiancé that changes the whole dynamic. The current version is 6,200 characters long. Do you want me to expand it fully to the 7,000 character maximum with more details and dialogue to make it feel even more viral? AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé live in my house while he sorts out his financial mess. So, this is going to be a bit long, but bear with me because there's a lot of context. I, 28F, own a decent-sized townhouse in the city. I worked hard for it, saved aggressively, and honestly, it's a big source of pride for me. I've been living here for about 3 years, and it's my sanctuary. I like to keep it clean, organized, and on my own terms. My sister, Claire, 30F, lives a couple of hours away, and she's been dating her fiancé, Jason, 32M, for almost 2 years. Now, Jason is a good guy in many ways, but he has a history of poor financial decisions. He's been fired from jobs, hasn't saved, and honestly lives kind of hand to mouth. Claire and Jason recently got engaged, and she's super excited about it, which I'm genuinely happy for her. However, she also dropped a bombshell on me recently. Jason is essentially broke right now. His car broke down, and he has no savings to fall back on. Claire asked if it would be okay if he stayed with me for a couple of months until he gets back on his feet. She framed it as a temporary solution while he finds work and stabilizes. But from the way she explained it, it seemed like she expected me to take on most of the responsibility. At first, I was shocked. I love my sister, but I live alone and my life is already busy with work, hobbies, and trying to maintain some sense of peace. My townhouse isn't tiny. It's a 3-bedroom, but it's not meant for long-term guests. I thought about saying yes, but as I imagined the reality, I realized it could get messy. I would have to let someone into my home who I barely know well in terms of living habits, and who could potentially make a lot of mess and stress. Plus, Claire didn't mention contributing financially, just staying there while he figures things out. I tried to explain this gently to Claire. I said I understood their situation, but I'm not in a position to have someone move in for months, especially given Jason's history of being careless with money and responsibilities. I suggested alternatives. Maybe he could look for short-term rentals, stay with a friend who is in a better position to host, or even consider a co-living situation. I even offered to help him look for work, review resumes, or connect him with people who might be hiring. I try to make it clear that I wanted to support them, just not by letting him live in my home. Claire didn't take it well. She started accusing me of being selfish and unsupportive of family. She said she couldn't believe I'd rather let her fiancé struggle on his own when I have a perfectly good place he could stay. She tried to guilt-trip me by bringing up all the times I had her over when I had a spare room or lent her money in the past. I pointed out that those were short visits or specific circumstances and that having a grown adult live in my home indefinitely is very different. She also said Jason wouldn't be any trouble, but honestly, I know from her own stories that he can be messy, forgetful, and sometimes completely oblivious to how much work it is to manage a household. The conversation escalated. She started messaging me constantly, telling me that if I was truly family-oriented, I would help, and that by refusing, I was choosing comfort over helping people you love. It got to the point where I had to block her for a few hours just to calm down. I told her I would support her and Jason in other ways, but I cannot host him. Then things took a weird turn. Jason apparently texted me directly. I had never met him in person, only through Claire, asking if it would be possible to crash at your place just for a week because he had nowhere else. I responded politely but firmly, reiterating that I couldn't have him stay at my house. He seemed frustrated and said that my sister made it seem like you'd be okay with it, and that it's just a week. I tried to explain again that I'm not comfortable having someone live with me, even temporarily, especially someone I don't really know. Claire found out about this conversation, and now she's calling me all sorts of names behind my back. According to mutual friends, she's telling people that I'm heartless and don't care about family. I feel horrible because I want to support my sister, but I also feel like it's unfair for her to expect me to disrupt my entire life for someone I barely know and who has a history of instability. I've offered financial help, career advice, and even a small cash loan to help Jason get on his feet, but apparently, that's not enough for her. Here's the kicker. My parents are on my side, mostly, but they're worried about the family drama it's causing. They said it's understandable that I don't want someone moving in permanently or semi-permanently into my home. My friends also think I'm right to set boundaries. I can't help but feel like I'm being painted as the villain for wanting to maintain my own household boundaries. Claire has even suggested that if I don't let Jason stay, she might not come to my wedding when I get married in a few years. That feels manipulative to me. I've tried to stay calm, be supportive in other ways, and offer alternatives, but she's not hearing it. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé live in my house while he gets his financial life together? I feel like I'm trying to do the right thing by setting boundaries, but everyone around me is saying I might be the villain here. AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding after what happened at my family reunion. So, this is going to be long, but I want to lay out all the context because my family has a lot of history and baggage. I, 28F, have always been relatively close with my extended family, but there are some toxic dynamics, especially surrounding my cousin Sarah, 30F. Sarah has always been the golden child of our family, and I think a lot of resentment has built up over the years, which I've mostly ignored, but all came to a head recently. Last month, my family had a reunion at my aunt and uncle's lake house. There were about 30 people there, and it was mostly fine until dinner. I had been working really hard at my new job, which involves long hours and a lot of stress, and I was genuinely exhausted. I decided to take a small break outside the house for a few minutes to breathe and decompress. While I was outside, I overheard Sarah talking to my mom in a way that made my stomach drop. She was saying things like, "I don't know why anyone bothers with Emily. She's always so dramatic, and I can't believe she even got invited. It's not like she's ever contributed to anything worthwhile in this family." I froze because it felt surreal hearing someone I was close to speak about me like that. But I didn't confront her immediately. I tried to act normal for the rest of the night, but inside I was seething. Later, during dinner, Sarah made several pointed comments about me. She brought up a story from when I was 16 about a misunderstanding with a neighbor's dog and framed it as me being irresponsible and selfish, even though everyone there knew the story had been blown way out of proportion. She laughed about it and expected everyone else to laugh too. I laughed awkwardly, but I could feel my cheeks burning. Things escalated the next day. My uncle asked everyone to help clean up after breakfast, and I was in the kitchen trying to do my part. Sarah came in, looked at me, and said, "You know, Emily, maybe if you spent less time sulking outside and more time helping, this wouldn't be such a mess." It felt like a deliberate attack in front of everyone. I snapped. I told her that I had been working all week and just needed a few minutes of quiet, and that she had no right to talk to me like that. My dad, who has a very hands-off approach, just rolled his eyes, and my mom whispered to me to calm down. Sarah didn't back off. She turned it into a performance, telling everyone, "Emily always overreacts. Can't take a joke, really." The rest of the family seemed uncomfortable, and some tried to defuse the tension, but others laughed along with her. I ended up leaving the reunion an hour early because I couldn't handle the constant jabs and passive-aggressive comments. After I left, my mom called me and told me that I was being too sensitive and that I should try to mend things with Sarah. I explained that I felt attacked and belittled and that it had nothing to do with being sensitive. It was about basic respect. My mom sighed and said that I should at least try to attend Sarah's wedding in 2 months because it's a big family event and she's your cousin after all. I told her I wasn't sure. I thought about it for a few weeks and realized that going to the wedding would likely mean putting myself in another uncomfortable, emotionally draining situation where I'd be the butt of jokes or the target of gossip. I decided to tell my mom and dad that I wouldn't be attending. I explained that it wasn't about the wedding itself, but about how I had been treated at the reunion and how I didn't feel safe or respected around Sarah. My mom flipped. She told me that refusing to attend would hurt the family and that I was being selfish. She said things like, "It's one day, Emily. Can't you just put aside your pride for family?" I tried to explain that it wasn't pride. It was self-preservation. My dad was quieter, but agreed that it would be better if I tried to go, mainly to avoid family drama. I posted about it to a few friends because I needed perspective. Most told me I was justified and that nobody should have to subject themselves to repeated emotional abuse just because it's a wedding. A couple of other family members, though, messaged me behind the scenes saying that I was being dramatic and that weddings are about unity, and if I couldn't handle a few hours, maybe I should reconsider how I approach family events in general. Here's where it gets more complicated. My cousin Sarah found out that I had decided not to attend. She called me and left a long voicemail, which I haven't responded to. She said things like, "I don't know why you're making this about you. Everyone else is coming, and you're letting your ego ruin it. It's sad that you can't be happy for me for one day." She also mentioned that my absence would be noted and remembered, which felt extremely passive-aggressive. I talked to my closest aunt, not my mom, who told me she understands my feelings and supports my decision. She said Sarah has always thrived on drama, and that standing up for myself is the right move. But my mom and some other family members are calling me selfish and immature. I keep going back and forth in my mind. On one hand, I want to avoid conflict and maintain family ties. On the other hand, I genuinely don't think it's healthy for me to be in a room with someone who has made me feel repeatedly belittled and humiliated in front of family. I've considered going for just a short time, but I'm worried it will turn into another confrontation or that I'll feel alienated the entire time. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding after what happened at the family reunion. I feel like I'm protecting my mental health, but my family keeps saying I'm overreacting and being selfish. I really want to know if I'm wrong for standing my ground here. Character count, 6,471. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior toward me. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emma, 25F, and we've always been pretty close. We grew up with our parents, who were lovely but very traditional, emphasizing family loyalty and respect above all else. I've always been the responsible one in the family, and Emma has tended to be more free-spirited. Our relationship has had ups and downs, but we generally get along. Recently, though, things have become very strained because of her fiancé, Jared, 27M. A little background. I met Jared about 2 years ago. At first, he seemed nice enough, funny and charming, but over time, I started noticing little things that rubbed me the wrong way. He often made passive-aggressive comments, especially about things I do or say, and he has this habit of dismissing my opinions outright. At family dinners, he's made jokes about my career choices, my clothes, even my cooking, stuff that's small but cumulative. Emma, on the other hand, brushed most of it off, saying he's just joking or that I'm too sensitive. I tried to shrug it off at first, thinking maybe I was overreacting, but it started escalating. The breaking point came last Christmas. My parents hosted a big holiday dinner, and Jared was there naturally. I spent the evening making conversation, helping with dinner prep, and trying to be friendly, but every time I spoke, he interrupted me or made a sarcastic remark. When I commented on a dish I made, he said, "Oh, I thought you'd just order takeout like always," loud enough for the whole family to hear. I froze. Emma laughed it off, saying he's just teasing, but I couldn't let it go. Later that night, after most guests had left, I confronted him privately. I told him that his comments were hurtful and uncalled for, and that I didn't appreciate being spoken to that way. His response was to smirk and say, "Relax, it's all in good fun. You need to lighten up." I left, furious, and didn't speak to him for the rest of the night. Emma was upset with me for making things awkward at the party. Since then, I've tried to maintain some distance, limiting interactions with him whenever possible. I never expected, however, that this would turn into a major issue with Emma. She got engaged about 6 months ago and immediately started planning her wedding. She's incredibly detail-oriented and wanted everyone involved in the process. When she invited me, I was excited at first, but then she insisted I help with some of the planning, including seating arrangements and dress choices. I politely declined to take an active role, saying I was happy to support her, but didn't want to make decisions about the wedding. She seemed hurt, but didn't push it. The real problem arose about a month ago. She asked me if I could spend a weekend with her and Jared to bond and finalize some wedding stuff. I said I didn't feel comfortable spending a weekend alone with them, especially Jared, because of the history we had. She seemed annoyed but accepted it, saying she would handle it another way. Then, a week ago, she sent me a text asking if I was seriously considering not coming to the wedding. I told her the truth. I couldn't, in good conscience, attend a celebration with someone who consistently disrespected me. I explained that I loved her and wanted her to be happy, but I could not tolerate being treated poorly in a setting where I would be expected to be cheerful and polite to someone who has made me feel unwelcome and belittled. I offered to celebrate with her privately, maybe take her out for a lunch or a small get-together before the wedding, but I could not attend the actual ceremony or reception. Her response was intense. She accused me of being dramatic, selfish, and unsupportive. She said that family is supposed to stick together, that I was ruining her big day, and that she couldn't believe I would allow personal issues to ruin what should be a joyous occasion. She even suggested that I was trying to sabotage her relationship and implied that I was jealous of Jared. My parents are split on it. My mom says she understands why I feel hurt, but also thinks I should try to get along, while my dad said he's disappointed I'm not putting my sister first. My friends are mixed too. Some think I'm justified. Others say I should suck it up for one day. I feel torn. On one hand, I don't want to miss my sister's wedding, and I love her deeply. On the other hand, the idea of sitting in the same room with Jared, pretending everything is fine, makes me anxious and angry. I've tried reasoning with Emma and setting boundaries, but she refuses to see my side, saying that weddings are about love and family, and that I'm making it about me. I've considered trying to be civil and attending only the ceremony, but I'm worried I won't be able to handle it and that it will ruin her day anyway. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? Or is this a reasonable boundary to protect my own mental health and dignity? I keep replaying the events in my head, trying to see if I'm overreacting, but every time I think about it, I feel the same mix of frustration and hurt. I want to support my sister, but I also want to be respected. I just don't know where to draw the line. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to pay my sister's wedding photographer after she asked me to cover it because I make more money than her. So this is going to be long, but I need some perspective because my family is totally split on this, and I feel like I might actually be in the wrong, but at the same time, I think what she did was ridiculous. A bit of context first. I, 32M, work in tech and make a comfortable salary. My sister, Jenna, 28F, works in retail and has been struggling financially for years. We're not super close, but we talk regularly and generally have a decent relationship. About 6 months ago, she got engaged to her fiancé, Mark, 30M, and they started planning a wedding that, frankly, seems way out of their budget. I was not heavily involved at first, except for helping them pick venues and recommending some affordable vendors. I didn't feel pressured to contribute money because my parents usually handle a lot of the finances, and Jenna always said she wanted a small, intimate wedding on a budget. Fast forward a few months, and I get a text from her saying, "Hey, we need a favor. Can you cover our photographer? We really want someone amazing, and it's $3,500. Since you make way more than us, it would mean a lot." I was taken aback. $3,500 is a lot of money for me to just give someone, even for my sister. I explained that while I was happy to help in smaller ways, I couldn't just hand over thousands of dollars. She started crying over the phone and saying how unfair it was that I could afford it, and how I never support her dreams. I tried to reason with her, telling her that supporting her dreams doesn't mean writing a check that I never agreed to, but she got really defensive. My parents got involved at this point. They told me that if I didn't pay, it would cause a rift in the family. They said I was being selfish and needed to help my sister on her big day. I pointed out that I was happy to help in other ways, driving people to the venue, helping with decorations, even helping research photographers, but they said that wasn't enough. I eventually offered compromise. I would pay $1,000 toward the photographer, which is still a significant amount of money for me. Jenna refused and said that was pathetic and that I was just trying to buy my way out of being a good brother. I got frustrated and told her that if she wanted a $3,500 photographer, she needed to either save up or scale down her expectations. She called me cold and ungrateful, saying that money isn't about need, it's about love, and I clearly don't love my sister enough to help her shine on her wedding day. The argument escalated quickly. Mark got involved and said that I was ruining their wedding planning and that they were going to be hurt if I didn't pay. I tried to stay calm and told him politely that I wasn't comfortable giving that much money as a gift, and it felt like they were expecting me to pay for their lifestyle. My parents texted me a few hours later, basically giving me an ultimatum: pay the full $3,500 or don't expect to be part of family events. I didn't pay. Instead, I suggested they look for photographers who were within their budget or hire someone less experience for less money. Jenna responded by unfriending me on Facebook, ignoring my calls, and apparently crying to our extended family about how I refused to support her dream and made her feel unloved on the most important day of her life. A few weeks later, I saw some pictures from the wedding on Instagram, and it looked like they went ahead with a more expensive photographer anyway. I don't know how they managed it. Maybe they took a loan or drained her savings, but apparently everyone is pretending like I'm the villain. Even my parents barely speak to me now, and Jenna has blocked me completely. Honestly, I feel conflicted. I don't mind helping family, but I feel like being guilted into giving thousands of dollars is unreasonable, especially since it wasn't discussed as a gift beforehand. On the other hand, I do feel bad because she's my sister and clearly wanted my support, but at what cost? I've already offered a generous compromise, but she didn't accept it. I want to know, AITA for refusing to pay the full amount for my sister's photographer, even though I have a means? Edit to add, my parents are still upset with me, calling me cold and saying I owe my sister this. Additional context if it matters. I've never been a big spender, and I generally don't hand out money to family unless it's an emergency. I do give gifts, but they're usually thoughtful and within reason, not thousands of dollars. I'm open to hearing how others see this. Am I really the bad brother here? Or is my family overreacting? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior toward my kids? I, 36F, have 2 children, Emma, 8, and Leo, 5, from my previous marriage. I've been divorced for 5 years, and my ex is amicable, so co-parenting has been relatively smooth. I generally try to keep my family life positive and stable for the kids. My younger sister, Lisa, 30F, has always been the free spirit in the family, and while I love her dearly, she has a tendency to act impulsively without considering how her actions affect others. Lisa got engaged to her fiancé, Marcus, last year. From the beginning, Marcus seemed charming, funny, outgoing, and very confident. Everyone in our family liked him at first glance. But shortly after he started spending more time with us, I began noticing some red flags, particularly around how he interacted with my kids. At first, it was small things. He would make comments about their eating habits, like telling Leo he shouldn't have cookies because he'd end up fat like some kids. I brushed it off, assuming he was joking, but the comments became more pointed over time. Emma is a very sensitive child, and she started getting anxious whenever Marcus was around. I tried talking to him privately, but he brushed it off, saying I was too sensitive and that kids need to toughen up. The real breaking point came last month. Lisa and Marcus invited me and the kids over for dinner. The kids were excited, but as soon as we arrived, Marcus started making sarcastic jokes at their expense. He mimicked the way Emma pronounces certain words and rolled his eyes when Leo asked for seconds at dinner. He even said to me, in front of everyone, "You really need to control these little monsters, don't you?" I was stunned and embarrassed, and the kids were visibly upset. I told Lisa we needed to leave, but she insisted that I was overreacting and that Marcus didn't mean it that way. Since then, things have escalated. Lisa seems to have completely sided with Marcus, claiming that I am too harsh on him and that my children are just too sensitive. She started sending passive-aggressive texts like, "Hope Emma and Leo aren't still sulking over dinner," and "Marcus didn't mean anything. Why are you being so dramatic?" I tried to explain to her that his behavior is not a one-off and that it's affecting my kids, but she refuses to listen. The wedding is in 2 weeks. I initially planned to attend because I wanted to support my sister, but Marcus has been openly rude to my kids in front of other family members at a pre-wedding brunch. He laughed when Emma accidentally spilled water on herself and told Leo he was hopeless at sitting still like a normal kid. This time, I couldn't ignore it. I told Lisa I would not be attending the wedding unless Marcus apologized and agreed to treat my children with respect. Lisa exploded, accusing me of trying to ruin her special day and claiming that I'm letting my bitterness control me. I offered alternatives, like having a brief meet and greet with Marcus before the ceremony so he could understand my concerns, but Lisa refused. She said that my actions are selfish and that I'm prioritizing my kids over her happiness. Our parents are divided. My mom supports me, saying Marcus needs to learn how to behave around children, while my dad thinks I'm overreacting and should just grin and bear it for my sister. Now, family gatherings have become tense. My siblings are calling me dramatic, my sister has blocked me on social media, and some relatives are pressuring me to apologize. I feel torn because I love my sister and want her to have a happy wedding, but I cannot in good conscience put my children through an event where they will be ridiculed and disrespected. I also worry about the precedent it sets. If Marcus can belittle my kids now, what will happen when they interact more in the future? Friends are divided as well. Some say I should suck it up and attend for the sake of family, while others support me, saying it's my responsibility to protect my children. I'm trying to balance supporting my sister with protecting my kids' emotional well-being, but I feel like I'm stuck between two impossible options. I never imagined that saying no to a wedding invitation could cause such a rift. I miss my sister and wish we could resolve this without anyone feeling hurt, but Marcus' repeated disrespect toward my children feels non-negotiable. I can't let my kids be humiliated on what should be a joyful occasion for my family. So, Reddit. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior toward my kids. AITA for refusing to lend my apartment to my cousin after a huge family fight. So a little backstory. I, 28F, live in a one-bedroom apartment in a moderately expensive city. I've been living here alone for about 3 years now, and while it's not huge, it's mine. I've worked hard to get to a point where I can comfortably pay rent, utilities, and still save a bit each month. I love my independence, and I've always prided myself on being responsible with my finances and space. Enter my cousin, Laura, 30F. We've always had a tense but manageable relationship. She's extremely dramatic and tends to exaggerate everything, and I, frankly, prefer to avoid emotional chaos if I can. For years, she's been bouncing from apartment to apartment, usually because she can't pay her rent or has had a conflict with roommates. Our families have always been split in their opinions about her. Some think she's misunderstood, others think she's irresponsible. I fall somewhere in the middle. The fight started a few months ago when my aunt, Lara's mom, called me and asked if Laura could stay at my apartment for a week or two because she had nowhere else to go. At first, I said no. I work from home, I don't have a lot of space, and I was in the middle of a very important project at work. But my aunt guilt-tripped me hard. She told me Laura had nowhere to sleep, no money, and no other family to ask. They painted me as the selfish one, saying, "You're the only one who can help her right now." After hours of texts and phone calls, I reluctantly agreed to let Laura stay for 3 days, thinking I could manage it. Those 3 days turned into a month, and that's when the real problem started. Laura has a lot of quirks that I tolerate in small doses with other family members, but living with someone full-time is a different story. She leaves dirty dishes in the sink for days, eats all my groceries without replacing them, and has a very loud, late-night TV habit that makes it impossible for me to work. She also brought home a friend who slept on my couch for a week without asking me. Every time I tried to set boundaries, she cried and told me I was being unfair, saying things like I thought family was supposed to help each other. The breaking point happened about 2 weeks ago. I came home from work exhausted, and she had invited half of her friend group over. The apartment was a mess, music blasting, people smoking in my apartment, even though I had told her multiple times no one could. I asked them all to leave immediately, and she got furious. She started yelling at me, accusing me of being ungrateful and cruel. She said, "I've been through worse than this, and you're acting like a monster." I called my aunt to vent, and she sided with Laura, saying I was being too harsh and should learn to be more compassionate. My mom also chimed in, reminding me that family is everything, and I should be willing to help when someone is in need. That's when I realized they were all framing this as if I was the villain simply because I refused to let Laura turn my life upside down. So I made a decision. I sat Laura down and told her she had to leave. I offered to help her find a short-term hostel or connect her with local charities, but I told her she could not stay in my apartment anymore. She screamed, called me every nasty name in the book, and then stormed out. My phone has been blowing up with calls and texts from her, my aunt, and even my parents, all trying to guilt me into letting her back in. My cousin has now posted on social media about how cruel and heartless I am, tagging family members and friends. Here's the part I'm really struggling with. My apartment has been a huge source of stability for me. I've saved for years for this place, and it's genuinely the only thing in my life that feels completely mine. If I had a bigger apartment or more money, I might have been able to accommodate her for a longer period, but I can't. I feel like everyone is ignoring my right to my personal space and independence. At the same time, I can't help but feel guilty because she really does have nowhere to go, and I know she's not exaggerating her lack of housing options. I've been debating if I should apologize for how I handled things, maybe try to make amends, but part of me thinks it would just reinforce the idea that I'm supposed to sacrifice my well-being for her. I also feel like if I let her back in, I'd be enabling a cycle of irresponsibility and entitlement that I've already seen ruin her life multiple times. So, Reddit, here's my dilemma. I feel justified in protecting my space and sanity, but my family keeps framing me as the villain for refusing to let Laura stay indefinitely. Am I really being selfish and cruel, or is this a situation where my boundaries are reasonable? AITA? AITA for ruining my sister's wedding by insisting on including my stepdaughter? I never thought I'd be the person posting something like this, but here we are. This has been weighing on me for months, and I honestly need to hear if I was really in the wrong or if my family is just overreacting. I, 34F, have a 10-year-old daughter, Emily, from a previous marriage. My ex-husband and I split amicably, and Emily splits her time between us fairly evenly. She's always been super close to me, and to some extent, my family as well. She has never caused any issues with my family, and in fact, they've always doted on her. My sister, Rachel, 29F, has been dating her now husband, Ben, 32M, for about 6 years. They got engaged last year and decided on a small, intimate wedding. We are a fairly close-knit family, and everyone was really excited about the wedding. When Rachel announced that it would be very small, she mentioned she was trying to limit the guest list to close family and a few friends, which I completely understood. Here's where the tension started. Rachel and I are half-sisters. We share a dad, but he passed away when I was 12, and Rachel was only 7. I have always been the one to step in and help my younger sister navigate life, and when our dad passed, I basically became a second parent to her. She and I have always been close, but she tends to be very controlling and has strong opinions about how things should go. When Rachel told me the guest list was small, I accepted it. Emily is very well-behaved and generally adored by everyone, so I didn't see it as a big issue. A few weeks before the wedding, I casually asked Rachel if it would be okay for Emily to attend. I didn't frame it as you have to invite her, just more like, hey, I'd love for Emily to come if possible, but I understand if not. This is where things escalated. Rachel freaked out. She told me that she didn't want children at the wedding and that Emily could not attend under any circumstances. I tried to explain that Emily is like a little sister to her in some ways, that she's polite and quiet, and that I thought it would be nice to include her. Rachel didn't budge. She said that she wanted an adult-only wedding, no exceptions, and that I should respect that. I felt hurt, but didn't push it. A few days later, though, I ran into my mom, who casually mentioned that Rachel had been complaining about me, bringing up Emily constantly, and that it was stressing her out. At that point, I realized this wasn't just a disagreement. It had become a full-blown battle. I decided to try one last time to talk to Rachel. I told her I understood her wishes, but wanted her to consider how Emily might feel being excluded from such a big family event, especially since Emily and Rachel have always had a bond. Rachel was furious. She said that I was being manipulative and trying to guilt her into changing her wedding plans, and she told me I needed to back off or we wouldn't have a relationship for a while. I was shocked because my intention wasn't to manipulate anyone. I just wanted my daughter to be included in a family milestone, and I thought it would be nice for her to feel involved. I even offered to stay in the background or let her have a designated kids area, but Rachel refused to compromise. The week of the wedding, I got a call from Ben, Rachel's fiancé, asking me to confirm that I understood Emily could not be at the wedding. I told him I did, but that it was very disappointing. He said Rachel was adamant and that they didn't want any children. I hung up feeling frustrated but resigned. The wedding day came, and as expected, it was beautiful. However, seeing Rachel and Emily interact through the glass doors of the venue was painful. Emily was excited and dressed up, and I had to tell her she couldn't go in. She started crying, and I ended up leaving early because I couldn't bear to watch her disappointment. After the wedding, the fallout was intense. Rachel refused to talk to me for 2 weeks. When she finally did, she accused me of trying to sabotage her wedding and said I was selfish for thinking my daughter's presence mattered more than her big day. Our mom sided with Rachel, saying I should have respected her wishes and that I was overstepping boundaries. Even my dad's side of the family said I had made things awkward by even asking. I feel torn. On one hand, I know it was Rachel's wedding, and I should have respected her rules. On the other hand, Emily is my daughter, and I feel like she's been excluded from something meaningful just because she's a child. I don't want to damage my relationship with Rachel, but I also don't want Emily to feel like family events aren't for her. I've tried apologizing for pushing the issue, but also explained that my heart was in the right place. Rachel says it doesn't matter and that I ruined her wedding. Now, other family members are subtly blaming me, saying I should have kept my entitlement in check. AITA for asking for my daughter to be included in my sister's wedding, even though she explicitly said it would be adult only. Character count, 66-68. AITA for refusing to let my brother's new girlfriend stay in our family cabin after she embarrassed me and my friends. So, a little background. I, 29F, have a group of friends I've known since college, and we make a point to take an annual cabin trip together every year. We've been doing this for about 6 years now, and it's become a tradition. Last year, we even started booking the same cabin in the mountains because it's a bit isolated, has a hot tub, and allows dogs, which we all have. Everyone in my friend group is aware of it being our trip, and we've all agreed to keep it small and personal. My brother, 32M, recently got into a serious relationship with someone new. Let's call her Kate, 30F. He's usually been very considerate about our family stuff, but Kate has this really loud personality and tends to dominate conversations. I'll admit, she isn't a bad person, but she has this habit of turning casual things into competitions or drama-filled moments. A few months ago, my brother casually mentioned that Kate had been talking about going on a mountain getaway this winter and thought it would be fun to join us when he saw my post about our annual cabin trip. I smiled politely and told him, this is really just a tradition with my friends, and it's a smaller group, so probably not the best idea. He seemed okay with it at the time and didn't push. Fast forward to 2 weeks ago, my brother texts me saying he wants to bring Kate along because she really wants to see the cabin, and since it's family, it shouldn't be a problem. I was taken aback. I reminded him that this cabin trip is specifically a friend tradition and that adding someone he just started dating would be awkward and not in line with what we usually do. He started arguing about how it's just one weekend and how I was being exclusive and petty. I tried explaining that it's about the vibe and dynamics. I love my brother, but I honestly knew from past interactions that Kate and my friends wouldn't get along well. They have very different humor styles, and I've seen her get offended over small things. He said I was being unfair and accused me of protecting my friends over family. I told him I wasn't asking him to leave Kate out of all family events, just this one weekend that's specifically for my friend group. The argument ended with him saying, well, if you don't want us there, maybe we'll just go somewhere else for our holiday. I figured that would be the end of it. Then the weekend came. I'd already booked the cabin and was there with my friends setting things up. Surprisingly, my brother and Kate showed up. Apparently, they had decided to join without asking. They acted as if it was totally normal, and I froze. I was so frustrated that I didn't even know how to start asking them to leave. I tried to stay calm, but the weekend went downhill fast. Kate immediately started critiquing everything. The way I arranged the furniture, the snacks we brought, even the playlist I had made. She loudly declared that mountains are boring unless there's a spa or cocktails, and kept pushing everyone to go on long hikes that no one was interested in. My friends were polite at first, but were clearly annoyed. The worst moment came during game night. We were playing a classic board game that I had brought specifically because my group loves it. Kate didn't understand the rules, argued constantly, and eventually accused one of my friends of cheating after a minor mistake. My friends tried to laugh it off, but it escalated to yelling, and I ended up stepping in to explain the rules for the fifth time. At one point, she snapped at me, saying, "You never told me this trip was going to be so childish." I thought I was joining a fun adventure. I was so embarrassed and angry. By the second day, I told my brother that this was completely ruining the trip and that they needed to leave if they couldn't respect the dynamics. My brother, of course, said I was overreacting and that I was humiliating Kate by asking her to leave. He also told me that if I made them leave, he wouldn't speak to me for the rest of the year. I felt trapped because I didn't want to destroy my relationship with him, but I also couldn't let the trip turn into a disaster for everyone else. Eventually, I compromised by saying they could stay if they promised to follow the house rules, respect the plans, and try to get along. Kate agreed, but clearly only in words. She continued to make sarcastic comments, isolate my friends, and challenge every decision I made. By the end of the trip, I was exhausted and fed up. My friends admitted they were considering cutting the weekend short because they didn't want to deal with the drama anymore. After they left, my brother texted me angrily, calling me controlling and selfish and insisting I had ruined his relationship by not letting Kate integrate naturally. He also accused me of choosing friends over family, which hurt because that was never my intention. I feel guilty for the argument, but at the same time, I think he should understand that traditions with friends are just as important as family ones. Now, a week later, my other siblings are asking me if I overreacted. My friends say they're still a bit annoyed, but grateful I stood up for the vibe of the trip. My brother hasn't spoken to me since, and I'm worried I'm the AH for escalating things. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother's new girlfriend join a friend trip and then enforcing boundaries when it caused conflict. AITA for refusing to let my brother's wedding crash my life over a seating argument. 28F, am currently at the center of what my family is calling a disaster of epic proportions. And honestly, I'm still not sure if I'm being unreasonable or if my family is being dramatic. I'll try to lay it out as clearly as I can because it's one of those situations that snowballed in a way I never expected. My brother, Mike, 32M, is getting married in a couple of months. Normally, I'd be thrilled. He's my brother, and I'm excited for him. But his fiancée, Hannah, 30F, has always been a little difficult, and I'll admit, I was never super close to her. That's fine, but it's relevant because some of this conflict stems from that tension. The problem started with the seating arrangement for the wedding. Mike and Hannah have around 200 guests, and they're doing assigned seating. They asked my parents, my siblings, and me to give input on where people should sit. Now, my parents and I are generally good at avoiding drama, so I tried to suggest arrangements that would keep everyone relatively happy. Here's where it starts getting sticky. Hannah decided she wanted all family at one long table and friends at separate tables. That would include me, my parents, my brother, and my other siblings. But she had a very strict rule that anyone considered distant family or family by marriage had to sit at another table. She doesn't get along with my stepmom, and apparently my half-cousins didn't make the cut either. She wanted me to tell my parents to convince my stepmom and half-siblings to sit elsewhere. I refused. I told Mike and Hannah that I couldn't possibly ask my parents or my siblings to sit somewhere separate just because of some arbitrary categorization Hannah made. My family has always been messy but close-knit, and she was effectively trying to divide us on our wedding day. Mike told me I was overreacting and that it was just a seating chart, but Hannah was adamant that it would be disrespectful to her friends if we were splintering the family table. I suggested a compromise. We could have one long family table, but let everyone sit wherever they wanted within it, or we could create two tables next to each other. This way, no one would feel excluded. Hannah completely shut that down. She said, "No compromises here. It's my wedding. We're doing it this way." At this point, my parents got involved. They were also not happy about being told who could sit near whom. They called Hannah's behavior controlling and ridiculous, which, unsurprisingly, didn't go over well with her. Mike texted me later saying, "You're making her cry over this. Can you just do what she asks?" I didn't respond immediately because I didn't think it was fair to just bend over and comply. When I finally did, I told Mike, I'm not going to manipulate my family for the sake of a seating chart. You want this wedding to go smoothly? You need to stand up to her, not me. This naturally escalated things. Hannah called me personally and said I was being selfish and dramatic, that I was trying to ruin her special day, and that if I didn't cooperate, she would consider my family not invited at all. I was floored. I texted Mike and said that if she was going to make an ultimatum like that, then I couldn't be responsible for fixing her problem, and that was on them. Now, my parents are furious with me because they feel I'm jeopardizing my brother's wedding. My siblings are divided. One agrees with me, the other thinks I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. Mike hasn't spoken to me since, and Hannah posted on social media a vague post about family drama ruining everything, which my extended family immediately started reading into as me being the villain. To be clear, I'm not trying to sabotage their wedding. I've offered multiple compromises that would respect both Hannah's wishes and my family's need to sit together. The sticking point seems to be that Hannah wants total control and refuses to bend even slightly. I'm starting to feel like I'm being blamed simply for refusing to do something I consider morally wrong, telling people to sit separately to satisfy someone else's arbitrary rules. Here's why I'm conflicted. I love my brother and I want him to have a happy day. But I also feel like if I give in and ask my parents and siblings to move tables, it's setting a precedent where their happiness comes at the cost of my integrity. Is it really my fault that Hannah is so rigid about a seating arrangement? Or am I selfish for not wanting to smooth things over for the sake of the wedding? Honestly, the entire situation has become toxic, and my family keeps asking me why I won't just be the bigger person and go along with it. But in my mind, being the bigger person would mean lying to my family and compromising their comfort and my own principles. I'm tired, stressed, and honestly starting to dread attending the wedding at all because of the tension. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to rearrange my family to suit my soon-to-be sister-in-law's seating preferences? Or is this something that should be handled entirely by my brother and his fiancée? AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in with me after she left her abusive partner? I, 32F, have lived in the same apartment for the past 6 years. I rent a 2-bedroom place in a moderately expensive part of town, and I've worked hard to make it comfortable for myself. I live alone, and honestly, I enjoy my space and independence. I have a stable job in marketing and a decent social life, so life is good. My sister, Maya, 28F, has had a more turbulent life. She got married young, and her husband turned out to be emotionally and verbally abusive. Over the years, I've been on the receiving end of her calls where she vents about fights, unfair treatment, and various controlling behaviors from him. I've tried to support her, sometimes even confronting him over the phone when he got aggressive, but it never led to any lasting change. About a month ago, Maya finally decided she couldn't take it anymore and left him. She has nowhere to go because their marriage was financially unequal, and she was cut off from most family money due to him controlling finances. Naturally, she called me and asked if she could move in with me for a few weeks until she figured things out. I knew this moment would come eventually, and I braced myself for it. Here's the thing. My apartment is not exactly spacious. My bedroom is decent, but the living room is modest, and the second bedroom is technically usable but really functions as my office and storage. I've never had a roommate, and I value my personal space highly. When she first asked, I hesitated but didn't outright refuse. I suggested a few alternative options, like temporary sublets, staying with a friend, or even booking a short-term Airbnb while she looked for a new place. She insisted that none of those were viable, and it was logical for her to stay with me because we're family. I finally told her that I didn't think it would work to have her move in, at least not immediately. I explained that my apartment isn't suited for 2 adults for an extended period, that I need my workspace, and that having her stay indefinitely would be stressful for both of us. I also mentioned that I had work travel coming up in a few weeks, which would complicate things further. Maya got upset. She said I was being cold and unsupportive and accused me of choosing my comfort over family. She told me I should be willing to make sacrifices because she was in a vulnerable position. I tried to reason with her, offering to help her search for a new apartment, give her some money to cover initial rent or deposit, or even help her with moving logistics. She didn't accept any of those suggestions and kept insisting that I was being selfish. Things escalated when she started sending me messages late at night, crying about her situation and implying that I had abandoned her. I responded politely but firmly, reiterating that I wanted to help in ways that were feasible but could not accommodate her in my apartment. Eventually, she stopped texting me for a few days, which was a relief because I felt like I was constantly on edge. Then, yesterday, she showed up at my door unannounced. She brought a small suitcase and told me she was staying until she could figure something out. I was shocked and told her again that she couldn't stay. She started crying loudly, saying things like, "I thought family was supposed to help each other, and you don't care about me at all." I tried to stay calm and explain that I had been helping in every way I could without creating a living situation that would be harmful for both of us. I suggested she call a local women's shelter or rent a short-term place for a couple of weeks, and that I could help cover costs. She refused again and left angrily, threatening not to speak to me anymore. Since then, my family has been involved. My parents called me and said I was being harsh and that I should let her stay temporarily. My friends are split. Some say I'm justified because I have my own life and space, and some say I'm an asshole for not opening my home to family in need. I do feel bad that she is struggling, but I also know that my apartment isn't suitable for her, and I genuinely worry about the tension that would arise if we try to live together. She has a tendency to get emotional, and I know myself, I need space and boundaries to function. I feel like I've offered reasonable alternatives, but she doesn't accept them. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister move in with me after leaving her abusive husband? AITA for refusing to let my sister name her child after my late dog? This is going to sound ridiculous, but I feel like I have a legitimate reason, and I need an outside perspective because my family is split on this and it's stressing me out. I, 28F, have a younger sister, 25F, and we have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, we were very close, but over the past few years, things have become more competitive and tense. Our parents tend to favor her, which I won't dwell on too much, but it's relevant to the story because she often feels entitled to things that are emotionally significant to me. A little backstory. When I was 18, I adopted a dog named Charlie. Charlie was my companion through college and my early adult years. He was more than a pet. He was basically my emotional support before I even knew what that meant. I lived in a small apartment in the city, away from my family, and Charlie was the one constant I could rely on. He was quirky, loved sitting on my laptop while I worked, hated rain, and somehow always knew when I was sad. When he passed last year at 13, I was devastated. I was out of work for a few weeks, barely ate, and even had to get professional counseling to process the grief. Losing him was like losing a family member. Fast forward a few months, my sister got married and announced that she was expecting her first child. Initially, I was excited. I love my niece or nephew in advance, as weird as that sounds, and I thought this would be an opportunity to reconnect with my sister after a few years of distance. But then she dropped the bomb. She wanted to name her baby Charlie if it was a boy. I was taken aback. I mean, I get that Charlie is a common enough name, but for me, the emotional connection was enormous. I told her gently, "Hey, I know you love the name, but Charlie was my dog's name. It would mean a lot if you considered another name." I tried to explain that while it might seem silly, it's really personal to me. I'm not against the name in general. It's the association with my dog that makes it painful. Her reaction was explosive. She told me I was being ridiculous, that a human baby is not the same as a dog, and that it's my problem for attaching too much importance to a pet. Our parents chimed in and said that she should have the right to name her child whatever she wants, and that it's unreasonable for me to expect her to avoid a popular name. She also accused me of hogging grief and making her pregnancy about me. I tried reasoning with her, suggested compromises like using Charlie as a middle name, or even shortening it to something like Chaz or Charles, but she refused. She said it's Charlie or nothing, and that I'm being controlling. Over time, we stopped talking as much. The tension has seeped into family gatherings because my parents keep asking me to just let it go for the baby's sake. Here's where it gets worse. About 2 weeks ago, she called me crying because she said that she feels I don't respect her choices and that our parents think I'm being dramatic. She also said that she's never going to forget how selfish I was if I don't just agree to the name. I told her I understand she wants to honor a name she likes, but I can't erase my feelings about Charlie. She responded by hanging up and sending a group chat message to our parents and me saying, "If you love me, you just let me name my kid Charlie." It's a small thing. Since then, I've had a lot of family members, mostly our extended family, messaging me privately asking why I'm being difficult and why I can't let her have this. Some friends have also suggested that I'm overreacting and that people name kids after pets all the time. I feel trapped because on one hand, I understand that it's her baby and she technically can name it whatever she wants, but on the other hand, I feel like this name carries a lot of emotional weight for me. Charlie wasn't just a dog. He was my first true companion and a huge part of my adult life. The idea of someone else, even my sister, using that name for a baby feels like a violation of something deeply personal. I also worry that if I speak up too much, I'll come off as controlling or petty, but staying silent feels like I'm betraying my own grief and attachment. Some people in my life have suggested that I could just get over it and that it's not a big deal. Others have said that I'm justified in feeling upset and that it's okay to set emotional boundaries. I don't want to be the villain here, but I also don't want to lose a bond with my sister. I've considered offering a different honorific or nickname for the baby if she insists on Charlie, but she refuses to compromise. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister name her child Charlie? The worst part is, I feel like no matter what I do, someone will end up upset. Either I protect my emotional attachment to my dog's memory and risk family conflict, or I let her use the name and feel a deep personal loss. I don't want to come across as petty, but I also don't want to lose the significance of a name that meant so much to me. I've been debating writing a letter explaining my feelings in detail rather than confronting her directly, but I'm worried that might just escalate things further. I love my sister, but this conflict over a name has driven a wedge between us in a way that I'm not sure how to repair. I really need an honest judgment. Am I really the asshole here for standing my ground about the name Charlie? Or am I being unreasonable? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.